Echoes of regret, they said love conquers all, but no one warned Lily and Ion about the battles that happen within it. It had started as a silly argument, something about a missed call, a delayed reply, a misunderstood tone. But words once spoken do not fade, and Ion's voice, usually warm, turned sharp. Lily, hurt and frustrated, fired back. Accusations, old wounds, silence. He slammed the door. She stayed curled on the couch, tears falling into her hands. That night, neither slept. In the morning, Ion returned. The apartment was still. On the table was a note in Lily's handwriting. I never needed you to be perfect, just kind, but last night you were someone I didn't recognize. I need time. He dropped the note and sat in silence, the weight of shame pressing on his chest. He had let his pride win over the love he swore to protect. He remembered her eyes, not just yesterday, but every time they lit up. And now he wondered if they'd ever look at him the same way again. The fight had ended, but its echo lingered, louder than love. It was just a missed call, wasn't it? Just a simple, easily forgettable thing. Yet somehow it spiraled into something much larger. Ian had been busy at work, his phone on silent during a meeting. He came back to see 3 missed calls from Lily, nothing urgent in the message. Just a call me when you're free. He thought it could wait. He thought she'd understand, but Lily didn't feel ignored. She felt unimportant. There's a difference to her. It wasn't just the silence of the call, it was the silence of his effort. She stared at her phone screen, watching the minutes pass, rereading her own message. No reply, no follow-up, no explanation, just silence. How do you not feel forgotten when the person you love doesn't check in for hours? When Ian finally called back, his voice was casual, almost too casual. Hey, what's up? Lily tried to play along. Nothing much, just waiting to hear from you. Oh yeah, sorry, got caught up. He replied, as if that was supposed to make it okay. That was the moment something cracked. Lily's voice changed. She tried not to sound upset, but her words came out cold. You were too busy to even text. Ion heard the tone and sighed. Loudly, that sigh, that one sound, lit the fire. Lily, please, not this again. Can we not do this today? Not this again. Those 3 words, they stabbed deeper than she expected. Do what exactly? Ask for your time, your attention. Is that too much now? Now it was his turn. God, why do you always do this? You twist everything. I just said I was busy. It doesn't mean I don't care. That's not what it feels like. I wait all day just to feel like I don't exist in yours. Ion stood up, pacing now. You're being dramatic. You want me to drop everything just because you called. It's not about the call, Ion. It's about how I never feel heard. It's always you deciding when to talk, when to listen, when to care. Don't you see that? No, Lily. What I see is someone who can't be satisfied, who looks for fights when there's nothing to fight about. That was it. Her chest tightened. She felt like screaming, but instead her voice dropped to a whisper that cut even deeper. You really think I want to fight with you? You think this is what I enjoy? He was silent. Not because he didn't have a response, because he didn't expect her voice to shake. He didn't expect her eyes to glisten with frustration, with disappointment, with pain. The room was still, but inside both of them, storms were raging. We often assume love protects us from these moments, that love will automatically mean understanding. But love isn't immunity, it's vulnerability. It means that your words carry more weight, that your absence echoes louder, that your sighs, your silences, your tone, your timing, they all matter more. Ian knew that deep down, but at that moment, all he could feel was his own defensiveness. You know what? He muttered, if you're that unhappy, maybe we should both take a break. Lily stared at him. Shock, disbelief, heartbreak. You think walking away is easier than listening to how I feel. No, he said, quieter now. I think I need peace, and this isn't it. Then the door shut, not slammed. Just shut. The echo of it hung in the air like a verdict, and then nothing, just the hum of the ceiling fan, the flicker of a dying candle on the table, and Lily, frozen in place, like time had betrayed her. The words still ringing in her head weren't even the loud ones. It was the quiet things, the dismissal, the disbelief, the defeat in his eyes. She sat down, arms wrapped around her knees, trying to breathe. Not because she wanted the last word, but because that's not how love is supposed to feel. Right? How had it escalated so fast? When did misunderstanding become accusation? When did love start to feel like fear? But most of all, she wondered, why did he give up so quickly? The silence in the apartment was unbearable. Ion stood frozen after reading the note Lily had left. Her handwriting, so familiar, so soft, felt like it was screaming at him. I never needed you to be perfect, just kind. How did he not see this coming? His first instinct was denial. It wasn't even that big of a fight, but wasn't it? Not because of the words alone, but because of what those words revealed. They had fought before, sure, but this was different. There was something final in the way she walked away, something broken in her voice he hadn't heard before. He had crossed a line, and he knew it. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. How had he become this person, the one who shut down when she needed him to listen, the one who called her dramatic when she was just being honest about her feelings? Why did he feel so proud in the moment and so disgusted now? Shame isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up like a whisper, wrapping itself around your chest in the middle of the night. Ion couldn't even look in the mirror. The image staring back would ask too many questions. Why did you raise your voice? Why did you walk out? Why didn't you stay and fight for her instead of against her? It wasn't about being right anymore. He had been wrong, dead wrong. But pride is a tricky poison. It makes you defend yourself even when you're the one causing harm. What was he trying to protect? His ego or his love? He replayed her words in his mind again and again. I never feel heard. That line, that single truth, it hit him like a punch to the gut. He had always told himself he was a good boyfriend, supportive, present, caring. But what good is being physically present if your heart's behind a wall? What value is there in staying in the room when your silence feels louder than any goodbye? He remembered all the little moments he brushed off, the times she tried to express her emotions, and he responded with logic instead of empathy. Why are you overthinking? Or just relax. Words he thought were calming, but to her, they were dismissive. He thought he was helping. In truth, he was invalidating her reality. What kind of love listens only when it's convenient? What kind of partner chooses silence when understanding is what's needed most? The realization hurt more than the fight ever did. And now, shame had nowhere to go. It wasn't something he could apologize away. You can't just say sorry for years of missing the point. Sorry doesn't rewind time. Sorry doesn't undo the tears someone cried alone, wondering if they were too much or not enough. He walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and saw her favorite mug, the one with the chipped edge she refused to throw out. Why did it make his eyes sting? Because even that mug had more patience than he did. He whispered aloud, as if the walls might answer, "Why didn't I just hold her hand and say, 'I hear you'?" Because deep down he feared confrontation. He mistook comfort for peace, but peace built on silence isn't peace, it's distance. He leaned against the counter, guilt eating at him, not because he lost the argument, but because he might have lost her trust. And once trust is broken, it doesn't snap back. It fades, it doubts, it questions even the good moments. What made it worse? He knew she didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because she didn't feel safe being herself around him anymore. That's what shame does. It doesn't just reflect what you did. It shows you what someone felt because of what you did. Ion wished he had said something, anything, before the door closed, not to win, not to end the fight. Just to say, "I see you, I hear you, stay." But the moment had passed, and now all he had was the ache of awareness, the shame that comes not from being caught, but from finally seeing the damage done. He whispered again to no one, "I pushed away the one person who only ever wanted to be close." And that kind of shame, it doesn't go away quickly. It lingers, it teaches, if you're willing to learn. 3 days. That's how long it had been since Lily left. Ion kept checking his phone like a reflex. No new messages, no missed calls, no signs, and that silence, it wasn't punishment. It was space, space she needed to breathe, and space he had to honor. But space doesn't mean apathy, it means respect, and Ion was beginning to understand that healing wasn't about rushing back into normal. It was about building something better, something stronger than before. He spent hours revisiting the conversation in his head, not to win the argument, but to finally hear what she was trying to say. Not just what she said, but why. That kind of listening, it's not easy. It forces you to put down your pride and pick up your accountability. Why did he get so defensive every time she brought up her feelings? Was he afraid of being the bad guy? Was he more focused on being right than being real? He realized healing wasn't about fixing her pain. It was about fixing the parts of himself that caused it. He started journaling, something he once mocked, but now it felt necessary. He wrote about how silence became his weapon. How calm down wasn't comforting, it was control. How every time he chose to walk away instead of engage, he made her feel small, invisible. Why hadn't he seen it then? Because self-awareness doesn't scream, it waits. And when you're finally quiet enough, it speaks. And its voice, it's brutal, but honest. On the fourth day, he sent a message, not an apology text, not a long, winded defense, just 10 words. If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen. No pressure, no guilt, just a door left open. Lily didn't reply that day or the next, and strangely, Ion didn't panic. He respected the silence this time because he knew trust isn't a switch, it's a garden. You can't yank it out of the dirt and expect it to grow overnight. You have to tend to it, water it, wait. Finally, on the 7th evening, she called. Not texted, called. His heart raced. He picked up and said her name like a question. Lily. Her voice was steady but careful. I'm not calling to fix everything tonight. He nodded, though she couldn't see it. I wouldn't ask you to. There was a pause, and in that pause lived all the pain, all the love, all the exhaustion of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I just want to be heard, she said. I'm here, he replied, fully. So she spoke about how she felt invisible in the relationship, how every time she opened up, it felt like she had to convince him that her feelings mattered. She didn't want to compete with his schedule, his logic, his calm. She wanted to feel like her emotions were welcome. Ion didn't interrupt, didn't defend, didn't say yeah, but he listened, and listening, real listening, is not waiting to speak. It's holding space, and in that space, something powerful happened. She softened. When she finished, she said quietly, "That's all I needed, to know I wasn't crazy." And he finally said the words that had taken him a lifetime to learn. You're not, you never were. I just didn't know how to hold your pain without making it about mine. She was silent, then, almost a whisper, that's the first time you've ever said something like that. I mean it. Healing didn't happen in that call alone, but it started there, in truth, in vulnerability, in humility. The next week, they met for coffee, not to fall back into the same patterns, but to create new ones. They agreed to try again, but only if trying meant growing. No more emotional shortcuts. No more pretending that I'm fine meant anything at all. Ion started therapy, not because she asked, but because he wanted to. To unlearn what he thought manhood meant, to relearn how to be present without being perfect. And Lily, she started trusting again, slowly, gently, cautiously, because healing isn't forgetting. It's forgiving while remembering. They didn't go back to what they had. They went forward into something unfamiliar, but honest, because real love doesn't avoid conflict. It walks through it, hand in hand, even if the hands are trembling. The hardest part about rebuilding trust isn't the effort, it's the patience. You don't get to rush it, you don't get to demand it, and that's what Ion was learning every single day. They had decided to start over, not from zero, but from truth. Lily had agreed to meet, to talk, to slowly reopen the space between them. But she hadn't forgotten, and Ion, he didn't ask her to. He finally understood that forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. It means courage. It had been 2 weeks since the call, the one that broke the ice but didn't melt the whole glacier. They were texting again, talking occasionally, but everything was different, lighter, slower, more intentional. One evening, Lily messaged, "Let's have dinner, just dinner, no heavy talk." just presence. Ion's heart jumped. He smiled at the screen like it was a love letter. Presence, he could do that now, not because he read a book or saw a quote on Instagram, but because he had lived the absence. And he didn't want to go back. When he showed up at her apartment, he brought flowers, not to impress her, to appreciate her. There's a difference. He used to buy gifts when he felt guilty. Now he brought gestures when he felt grateful. She opened the door and smiled. You remembered my favorite ones. He chuckled. I used to hear you. Now I listen. Dinner was pasta, her goat a comfort food, nothing fancy, no big declarations, just two people sitting across from each other, choosing connection over performance. They talked about everything: books, music, childhood memories, no defensiveness, no tension, just rhythm. Then she asked softly, do you ever think about what went wrong? He nodded without hesitation. Every day, but not to beat myself up, to never forget what it taught me. She looked down at her plate, pushed some food around, then asked, do you think I was too emotional? His heart sank. No, I think I was too numb. She looked up. That answer, it surprised her. He continued, you were always feeling, always expressing. I just didn't know how to meet you there. I confused silence with strength, but now I see it was just fear. She stared at him like she was seeing a new person in a familiar face. I didn't want you to fix me, Ion. I just wanted you to sit with me. He reached across the table and gently took her hand. And I will. From now on, I will sit with everything. Your joy, your tears, your silence, all of it. It wasn't a promise spoken out of desperation. It was a vow made with clarity. That night, they didn't kiss. They didn't fall back into old patterns. They hugged, a long, slow embrace, the kind that says, I see you now, fully. Over the next few weeks, the trust didn't rebuild itself with grand gestures. It showed up in small ways. When she spoke, he put his phone down, not because she asked, because she mattered. When he felt overwhelmed, he told her, not to burden her, to be honest. When she cried, he didn't say, don't cry. He said, let it out. I'm not going anywhere. That was the difference now. He stayed emotionally. She began to trust again. Bit by bit, her walls didn't crash down. They cracked open, and in those cracks light returned. They even went back to the park where they used to walk. Same benches, same trees, but now new understanding. They sat there once, years ago, imagining their future. Now they sat imagining how to rewrite it. Ion asked her one day, do you still love me? She didn't answer right away. Then she said something that shook him. I never stopped. I just stopped feeling safe to show it. That truth, it burned and healed at the same time. He took her hand, kissed it gently, and whispered, this time, love isn't just a feeling, it's a practice. And he meant it. Because love after healing isn't just about being together. It's about doing better every day, every word, every silence. It wasn't about getting back to normal anymore. What even is normal after a storm like that? It was about growing forward, together, and not the romanticized movie, scene kind of growth, the real kind, the messy, patient, awkward, silent, vulnerable kind, the kind where both people admit, we still have work to do, but we're willing to do it side by side. 3 months had passed since that first call, and no, not every day had been easy. Some days were still heavy, some conversations still carried weight, but the difference now, they faced the weight together, not against each other. Lily no longer held her breath before expressing her needs. She no longer rehearsed her sentences in fear of being misunderstood, and Ion, he didn't respond with solutions or sarcasm anymore. He responded with presence. One night, as they walked home from dinner, Lily said softly, you've changed. Ion looked at her, his brow furrowed slightly. In a good way, in a real way, she said, before you always had to be right. Now you just want to understand. That's not small, Ion. That's maturity. He didn't speak for a moment, then asked, you think I was immature before? I think we both were. Emotionally, we were in love, but we hadn't learned how to carry each other yet. He nodded. That was the truth, wasn't it? Love alone isn't enough. It's the foundation, but it's not the roof, the walls, or the warmth. That stuff takes emotional building layer by layer. They had started doing something new, a weekly check-in. Nothing formal, no therapy structure, just a moment every Sunday where they asked each other one question: how's your heart today? That single question opened more doors than all their past fights combined. One Sunday, Lily admitted, I still get scared sometimes that you'll shut down again, that you'll leave in the middle of an argument. Ion didn't flinch. Thank you for telling me that, he said quietly. I can't erase the past, but I can build a different present. She looked at him, surprised. You don't feel attacked when I say that? No. He smiled. I feel trusted. You're sharing your fear with me. That means you believe I won't use it against you. That's what emotional maturity feels like. It doesn't mean never feeling insecure. It means talking through the insecurity without judgment, without shame. Lily had also grown. She stopped expecting Ion to guess her emotions. She stopped bottling things up until they exploded. When something upset her, she said it clearly, kindly, directly, and she wasn't afraid of how it landed, because now she knew she'd be heard. She even laughed one day and said, remember when I used to cry and say, you just don't get it? He chuckled. Yeah, and I'd stare at you like I was solving a math equation. Exactly, she grinned. Now you just hold me and say, tell me everything. And that matters, Ion, more than you know. They both had learned that growing in love doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like pausing before speaking. Sometimes it's choosing to ask, what do you need from me right now? Instead of jumping to conclusions. Sometimes it's simply saying, I'm listening. I'm not going anywhere. They had both unlearned things too. Ion unlearned that masculinity meant emotional distance. He learned that strength was softness, that leadership in love meant humility, not control. Lily unlearned the belief that she was too much. She learned that her depth wasn't a burden, it was a gift. She didn't shrink herself anymore. She brought her full self to the table and watched him welcome every part of her. One night, wrapped in a blanket on the balcony, Ion whispered, You've made me more human, Lily. She turned her head, surprised. What do you mean? You made me stop performing for the world, for myself. You taught me that being gentle is stronger than pretending to be strong. She looked at him with the kind of softness only earned through fire and forgiveness. And you taught me that healing doesn't mean changing who I am. It means changing what I believe I deserve. And in that moment, without needing to say it out loud, they both knew they hadn't just rebuilt their relationship. They had grown up inside it, together. Somewhere between healing and growing, something beautiful began to form. Purpose, not just as individuals, but as a pair. Love wasn't just about staying together anymore. It was about building something worth staying for. Ion and Lily had crossed storms, stitched up wounds, and now, standing in the quiet calm that followed, they asked a new question. What are we doing with this love? Because what's the point of surviving the fire if you don't light a better path with it? They weren't just lovers anymore. They were teammates, witnesses, co-creators of a shared future, not the fantasy kind with Pinterest boards and perfect vacation plans, but the real kind. The kind that asks, how do we use what we've learned to shape what we give? One afternoon, sitting beneath the old banyan tree in their favorite park, Lily turned to Ion and said, What's our reason? Not just for being together, but for being better. Ion thought for a moment, then replied, to make sure that no one in this love ever has to feel small again, not even for a second. That landed like a truth neither had dared to say before, because yes, love is safety. But safety is work. It's remembering that your words don't just land. They live in the other person. It's deciding that love isn't just about feeling good, it's about doing good. Every day, they started talking more openly about the future. Not just the usual stuff, careers, kids, money, but emotional legacy. What kind of relationship did they want to be remembered for? What kind of home did they want to build? Not physically, but spiritually. Lily said, I want our home to be a place where emotions are never inconvenient, where crying doesn't need permission, where silence isn't feared and joy isn't rationed. Ion nodded. I want our kids, if we have them, to see love that doesn't flinch under pressure, to know that apologies are strength, that being wrong is a chance to grow, not to shrink. They began to make tiny but powerful agreements, emotional values, not rules. Speak before the storm. If something's brewing inside, say it before it explodes. Feelings don't need fixing. When one is hurting, the other listens. No lectures, no shoulds. Adjust space, praise loudly, correct gently. Always uplift in public, guide in private. We are on the same team. Even when we argue, the enemy is the problem, not each other. These weren't written on a fridge or saved in a journal. They were lived. When Ion had a hard day, he didn't disappear into silence. He came home and said, I'm struggling today. I need a little patience. When Lily felt overwhelmed, she didn't mask it with smiles. She said, I need care, not solutions. Their love became less about moments and more about movements, a consistent dance of mutual awareness. And as they deepened into that rhythm, something else happened. Others began to notice. Their friends started asking, What's changed between you two? Lily would smile and answer, We stopped trying to be perfect. We started trying to be honest. Ion added, We don't just love each other. We understand why we love each other. Their love had graduated from chemistry to choice. Every day, a decision to show up, to check in, to care on purpose. They even began mentoring a couple they'd met at a community workshop. Two people struggling with the same things they once did: communication, fear, pride, silence. And Lily told the young woman one evening, Healing is hard, growth is harder, but shared purpose, that's what makes it all worth it. When you both look at your love and say, This is bigger than me, that's when it changes everything. Ion chimed in, and legacy isn't about being perfect lovers. It's about being consistent learners. You love better when you keep learning each other. Later that night, walking home hand in hand, Lily whispered, Do you ever wonder what people will remember about us? He paused, looked at her, and said, I hope they say they never gave up on each other, and they taught us how not to give up on ourselves, and that became their purpose, not just to love, but to leave behind a love that teaches,